All of a sudden we won the prize in Hollywood, and we had this kind of, there was this general request, I mean, because we obviously tried to push our situation, and people said, well, do you have a film in English? So obviously it was clear to me that my next step should be to try to make a film in English, at least to try to capitalize maximum out of what Lithium had brought so far. And the thing that it had brought was the prize in Hollywood. As soon as the opportunity came to move to an English-speaking part of the world, I just grabbed it. I told everybody involved, like my father, and said, like, you know, let's just do it right now. I do have a few rules that I really try to live by, and one of them is to do stuff when you can do stuff, and do things that come up and not miss opportunities. And the other thing is to try to break patterns and create discomfort zones, and not try to stay in comfort zones. A lot of people I speak to about that with, they say that they always try to make their life as easy as possible and to create a comfortable situation for themselves. I really am a strong believer of the opposite of that. It seemed like a really dicey thing to just pack up and go to London, which we chose, and try to start all over here. But on the other hand, it just felt like the completely right thing to do. I would say we did quite a miserable miscalculation in expecting to be making our first English-speaking movie very soon after we moved to London. In Sweden, we were always used to having distribution when needed, at least for discussion, and we would discuss the scripts and stuff, but we were not used to be out in the cold like we were here. I had been writing a script during the last period we had spent in Sweden, and as we moved over, I started translating it. I did translate it into English myself. I still cringe every time I read that version. But even after we actually had worked on that script with a British BBC story editor, and, well, previously to that had it translated properly into English as well, we still couldn't get it off the ground. At one point we even had Gael Garcia Bernal from Amores Perros and Et Humana Tambien attached to the script. We had Lawrence Fox, a British actor, and Sophia Miles, but still no go. The worst thing with this was that apart from not making a film, and that we were realizing what kind of situation we were actually in, it also started eating out of the money we had saved up and the money we had left in the company. So we're beginning to find ourselves in quite a tight spot. And as far as adventure, funny you mentioned it, because I mean the move over to England, even though it was quite a dicey move, I was well up for the adventure of that, and well up for the challenge of trying to learn how to write and speak English properly and try to survive in a different country. But I had really not expected to quite soon after that find myself in Peru's darkest rainforest with a bunch of wet cameras following some British travel writer looking for a lost city of gold. Going to the jungle was both a desperate and drastic thing to do, and that's partly what made it such a great idea. Almost all the credit for that, initializing that project, needs to go to Tahir Shah, the travel writer, who we followed and filmed looking for the lost city of Paititi. When we met Tahir, he had just finished another book on the jungle. He had been to Peru looking for a head-shrinking tribe in the Amazon. He pitched to us his next idea, which was to go to the Madre de Dios jungle in Peru and look the lost city of Paititi. And he suggested that we just come and film it. So we just thought that we'll do that, it sounds great. So we were pretty much in pre-production before we shook hands that evening and went separate ways. And just a few weeks later we were off on our first trip to the jungle. After the jungle, it was a long batch of London, and we had to move the office around a few times. One time we actually had the office out of a friend's basement. But the biggest problem when we came back was obviously we had about 200 hours of material of the jungle to edit into firstly a TV documentary for British TV, and then we had grand plans of making a feature film out of it for cinema, which we finally did, but that whole project altogether took a lot of time. We edited for over a year, I think. In the meantime, we started discussing what we could actually do in London. And somehow it came full circle, because I then thought that why don't I just try to write down some stuff that I've been sort of doing during the first period we were in London, when we didn't do anything and we were pretty much just eating up our money that we had saved. And obviously my way of dealing with that situation then was to go out to bars and partying and hanging out with newfound friends and stuff. So instead now, when we had landed a little bit and we had this project to finish and I had lots of spare time because the editing just took forever and ever, I started writing down notes and writing down bits of dialogue that I remembered, and I based a little story vaguely on two guys living in an ex-council flat in quite a trendy area of London. But all of a sudden it just grew, obviously because partly I was just longing to actually write a script again, and partly because I had so much material about these guys, and when you start digging you realize, oh my god, that happened and that happened and that thing led to that thing. We showed it around people and people were interested. However, the interest wasn't a clean interest, it was a interest that would lead to rewriting and reworking and changing and waiting and all that kind of usual film stuff. So one day we just counted the coins in the bowl on the table and decided that we can just buy some film stock, buy some DV tapes and shoot this baby just like that. And if that's what we'll do, you know, and it goes nowhere, that's what we'll do, because we want to make a film and we want to be doing what we like doing. So again, we took a very drastic decision and we put a bunch of money into just our own money, no financiers and no co-producers, just our own money into making the film. And we finished it, and amazingly it became a really cool little film. We won prizes in New York at the New York Independent Film Festival. We won prizes at the Brooklyn Film Festival. Yeah, we like to think that we were completely interrupted in our attempt to get Flip a Coin distributed, but I mean the truth is that we didn't really have a distribution offer that was terribly attractive. So suddenly when Tar calls and says that he's going to go and look for a golden treasure in Afghanistan, we kind of jumped onto that instead. Obviously we immediately got interest for it, just because it's as crazy as it sounds. And we're off. I mean, we've actually been on the first trip already, and we're soon going to head out on the second trip with our old 16 camera and a couple of DV cameras. It's a very interesting project because apart from being a crazy adventure, which we love, it's also an opportunity to make a really beautiful film about Afghanistan. There are lots of amazing stories, culture, places, buildings that just aren't shown through media at all, and instead this completely different picture is painted of a political problem zone. I'm very keen on trying to change that, or at least give people a completely different insight and view of what the country looks like and how it is to travel through it at the moment. I'm sure that the film we're going to make also is going to be quite a crazy journey, and hopefully we just come out of it alive.